morning, everyone. I am just going to do a quick rough and dirty little tour of my victory garden. I started this about maybe a month into the COVID pandemic, and I've been adding things as I can acquire them. I started out with just some pollinator species. So the Nepeta is really great for different really precious pollinators that we need to pollinate our food supply. And it's got a beautiful lavender flower and leaf, and it smells fantastic. It's like super, kind of like a spicy minty, but not exactly mint. And then I have a couple of dill plants that made it, and I've got some beautiful red flowered sage. It's not so much in flower anymore, but you can see, I don't know if you can see that little really unique, interesting, tiny little bee-like creature. That's one of the insects I'm going for. I don't know if you can see that because it's pretty sunny right now and my screen is kind of dark for me to be able to actually see, but it was just on this flower. And I often get these little butterflies that land on the lavender. When I got the lavender, it was just this tall and there was no flower. So it's really doing well. I've got Stackies, which is going to put out a great flower and is a really great ground cover. And I've got Lithidora, which is just one of my favorites. And surprisingly, I learned this once working at a nursery as the designer there in Oregon, that hummingbirds like this, even though it's a ground cover. And it doesn't really have a tube flower. I mean, I guess it kind of does. It's a tiny one. I did do some strawberries, but they're getting eaten by something. So I haven't been able to enjoy them yet. I'm thinking about putting them in a hanging basket, and I can do another video on perennial hanging baskets for you if you'd like. So I've got two types of tomatoes here, and of course, tomatoes smell amazing. It's one of my favorite things about tomato plants. This is how they smell. But this one is a yellow, kind of a cherry type tomato. And then this other one here, which you can see, I'm starting to get tomatoes. So excited. Is just a regular, like a slicing tomato, like a red one. And when I got these, this one was like this tall, and this one was about a third as tall as it is now. I did do a bunch of zucchini just because they came in a 6-pack tray, and you know, I mean, you can always give zucchini away. I like to make stuffed zucchini. I think it's delicious, but you can see I'm already getting some zucchinis here as well. They're starting. And then I was having the worst. I've just never been good at seeds, so I had this kind of this depressing experience right before we had a week of really heavy rain here. I got a bunch of seeds and I put them in these like trays that I'd gotten at a thrift store that came with like jute mats, and I was all excited and covered them in saran wrap that I taped on, and then it just dumped rain and I wasn't able to get them inside in time, and so they were basically mostly washed away. Oh, here's another little interesting little pollinator. You see where I'm pointing here? Hopefully this you can see. It's really hard to tell, so I apologize if this is confusing, but it's right there if you can. And anyway, so I lost most of those, and then it just kind of like, this is a lesson in fear. When I actually just gave up and bought more seeds and just put them under the mulch, I didn't even scratch up the soil. I just placed them between the soil and the mulch, and now look what's happening. I've got all these little seedlings coming up. So I learned the hard way. Just put them in the ground and they'll do a lot better than if you try to, you know, do seed tray, all this difficulty. And then so I've got beets. They're not doing so great. I did separate them out rather than planting them in a clump. I was able to get to a nursery locally pretty recently, and they finally had starts available. And it was this, what's the word? It just made me feel so hopeful and excited and happy about the world again, that they were actually open and people could go walk around. Granted, everybody was wearing masks, but still, it was just like, you can go to the nursery again. So I bought one of at least one of everything that they had as far as edible greens. And so I've got this cress that I've never tried. Some of these were not labeled, so I actually don't know what this is. I'm guessing it's like probably a cauliflower. That would be awesome if it is. This is a cabbage. I just planted it all in one bulk bunch, which you can see it's doing better than quite a bit better than the beets. But I like beet greens, so I'm really hoping that they survive. They look like they've survived, but I'm hoping that they do well. And then my cabbage, this is a Napa cabbage. It's not doing as well because you can see it's getting eaten. And I am not like the epic gardener type. I have not spent a lot of time because I've not often had the space to do it, but so I would need to do a little bit of research about attracting beneficial predator insects, and I'm, maybe I need to get like a praying mantis, which would be so cool anyway, or something like that. So I'll look into that, but I haven't done it yet. And then let's see what else. I've got spinach coming up here from the seeds, and I think I did like kale maybe, and I might have done like a Swiss chard. I don't even remember what I planted because I didn't even think they were going to come up. I was basically like giving up at that point. And then my cucumbers and beans, and I'm pretty excited about the cucumbers. You can see they're getting really, they just took the cue right away. A lot of people, most people I talk to, they don't think about the vertical component when it comes to cucumbers. And I do like squash and cucumbers up because you save space that way. They can also be a really good ground cover, and I'm using the mulch for a ground cover right now. It's really important for holding soil moisture and building soil structure and attracting in really good soil organisms. So I'm saving space and utilizing these little bamboo things I got at I think I got them at the dollar store. And then I paid top dollar for these fancy tomato cages. More Lithidora, and I'm also really excited. I discovered sorrel a few months ago, and I have one plant in a little box that I did last year in my courtyard, and I started to eat it, and it was fantastic. It's so delicious. I'd never had it before, and so sweet and tangy. And when I was out of greens for about, I think it was 3 days in between my CSA delivery, I went out to my garden and there was some sorrel, and I grabbed some leaves, and that was my greens for the day. So I was pretty excited. So I've got 3 more sorrel plants going, because I discovered that I love it, and it's a perennial vegetable. So also one thing that I'm trying this year that I've kind of thought about before, but never done, is I'm doing some of these little starts. These are squash, and then I've got a bean hiding over here in the tomatoes. You can see there's one of the leaves. I'm wanting to see if it'll work to do these to use the tomato cage as a trellis for some of these types of climbing plants. And what I do with a lot of these is I'll just stick a bean that I bought at the store in a bag of like bean soup and stick it in the ground. I think the squash seeds came from, I can't remember. I think they might have, I don't remember what they came from, but those are, I just stuck a bunch of seeds in, so they must have been in the soup maybe. But anyway, so I want to see if even with the shade of the tomato, they're going to be able to get up to the sun, and we can, I can use this cage for more than just a tomato. So it's a little experiment I'm doing. And then over here, I have my partial shade bed, and it really surprised me that the zucchini is actually doing better. It's, I didn't bother to do the research. It's like, what does zucchini like in terms of sun? I was too busy. Like lazy gardening, but it's doing great in the partial shade. And this was interesting. Remember how I talked about those seed trays? This is what happened. These little kale guys got totally washed out of the. This is like the pool patio. So these little kale seeds washed out of the tray that I had here, and I didn't even know. But they all came up in this crack. So I've been kind of taking a few at a time. I feel really bad because I can't fit them all. I didn't realize they were going to come up, so I filled the bed. You can see it's just like a polyculture. But I did grab a couple of them. There's one there. I don't think it's getting enough sun, and the one there. But it is what it is. These strawberries, I think they're not getting enough sun either, of course. And so I'm going to move them. But I took an onion from my kitchen that had sprouted, and it was like maybe this tiny little thing here, and put it in the ground, and it's doing great. And this is where I took this discarded piece of hardware. I don't know. I think it was like a grate for an AC unit laying on the property, and I just asked if I could use it, and nobody really cared about it. So I turned it into a trellis by staking it into the ground, and with just some jewelry wire. And now I've got my anise, which I'm so excited about. It's pretty spindly, I think, because it needs a little more sun, but it's going to flower, which is really great. It's totally a gorgeous flower too. Look at that. This is an umbel type flower, so it's really important for pollinators, and that's pretty much why I'm growing it. And then one of my beans started flowering today, which, what a beautiful little flower. I don't believe I've actually seen a bean flower like this before, so it's kind of new and neat for me to discover that. And I've been doing a lot of, I'm a very meticulous gardener type, and I like to come out and actually I'll help my little plants by guiding them really gently around where I want them to grow or where they would do best growing. And so they've finally taken my cue, and some of the beans are taking on the trellis and some of the peas. And then I planted, like I said, this soup mix, and so I've got these things coming up that I've never seen before. Like, I don't know what kind of bean that is. I think it had chickpeas, black beans, pinto beans, lima beans. It had small and large lima beans. I love lima beans. And I think there was, black-eyed peas. So I've never grown any of that. So I've got these really interesting legumes kind of coming up. You know, who the heck knows? I'll know if they ever make beans. But so I've got my, it's getting enough sun. You can see that it's flowering even back here. And then my pea, this one's putting out an actual pea today. So I've got a continuous coming up, and I keep putting more in, and that way what you can do when you do that is you get a successive crop, which is great because a lot of these they'll put out their crop and then they're done. So if you just keep putting more beans and peas and whatever in the ground, it'll keep going. Now these are the seeds that I put in this bed where I just put them, I laid them on the ground, and I pulled the mulch away, laid the seeds on, just poured the packet in and put the mulch back over it, hope for the best. Well, it worked. So now I'm gonna have to come in and start thinning these, and that means I get little microgreens. This is another onion that took, and then the one next to it, I guess it had already died in my pantry. Here's the bag of bean soup that I bought at like just a conventional grocery store. But look at all this. The only thing that really wouldn't sprout would be the split peas because they've been broken open, I don't think. Oh, and then there's a white bean, it looks like. But you can see the baby limas, the big limas. There's a red bean too. Pintos. I love pinto beans. So anyway, I'm just playing around. Oh, someone didn't eat that strawberry yet. And I got way too much cilantro this year. And then there's I think it's marjoram or maybe oregano. Let's see. I thought I kept here. Oh yeah, it is marjoram, which I plant herbs for the pollinator species. There's a really cool hover bee hanging out. I don't think I can capture him on film, but he's hanging out with the cilantro, if you can see that. Super important pollinator species. And then I did my lettuce starts in between all this to give them that shade, and they're starting to grow up. It's good. This is a lettuce I got from my CSA. Looks like my cat found the catnip today and laid on the plants to eat it. But this was a lettuce that was a butter lettuce, which I just love. And it came as a living butter lettuce, so I was like, well, what if I put it in the ground? And it had about a fifth of this many leaves when I did that, and it's totally regrowing itself. So that's awesome. I'm excited. And I've got, I think this is broccoli. I think these are broccoli, and they're doing surprisingly well for being in partial shade. This bed does get more sun than this. It's just the time of day I happen to be here. So that's my victory garden, and I'm growing all kinds of other things. That was a Q drop. Yay. Go Q. I don't know what your politics are, but I find it fascinating. But anyway, this is about victory gardening during the pandemic, and I just wanted to kind of illustrate for anyone who's interested in doing it that you do not have to be a professional gardener. You can try and experiment on stuff. You can just try stuff because it's kind of like an experimental station. If you fail, it's not really a big deal. It's a canvas for learning, and I'm just trying stuff, and most of the things I'm trying are working, but it's not because I read a book or anything. So I just want to encourage you to just go get what you can from your garden center, and to really include a lot of pollinator type plants. Like you can see the cilantro is putting out an umbel type flower, and look how beautiful this particular flower is. And most people don't ever allow the plant to grow this big or to flower in a lot of ways, because in a lot of circumstances, because we're all told like that you cut it, it's bolting and it's bad because it changes the flavor of the cilantro leaves you would want to eat maybe. But if you think about the species that are reliant on and helping you with your garden, it's such an amazing symbiotic thing. They need both physical habitat to land on and the type of flowers and other edible components of a plant that is only available when the plant is allowed to complete its full life cycle. So I have so much cilantro anyway, it's fine if it bolted, but look how tall these things are. They're like the size of a child, like 3.5 feet tall. Pretty cool. And ultimately, when we work with nature and we attract those precious pollinators and other species through some of the techniques that I use in my design work, and just in this simple little victory garden here, we really benefit more because they're doing some work for us, and we're also helping the ecosystem, because a lot of these types of plants are either not in the landscape anymore because a lot of companies will put in just like ornamental plants, or they're getting hacked back by the mow, blow, and go type landscapers that come in, and they don't know about plants. They aren't educated about landscape. They just kind of have equipment and come out and, you pay them weekly to quote unquote make it look nice. But they'll hack something back when it's in full flower, which is really a bad idea because it suppresses the plant's health and ability, like I said, to complete its life cycle, which if you allow it to do that, it's going to be able to do more and be healthier and give you more in the end and give more to the environment around it as well. And just a side note, I serve a lot of different types of clients, but one of my clients recently, for a course I'm teaching in permaculture farming, she, wanted to make sure that the course wasn't like a mystically focused course, because I do teach another course called the Mystical Garden Workshop, which is definitely focused on mysticism and spirit in relationship to plants. And I clarified that, the permaculture farming course is definitely just permaculture applied to your own property. So you're not developing someone else's property, which is what most design courses have you do. You're developing your own. But in this particular little note here, I just want to mention that Findhorn community in northern Scotland is famous and is well documented for their work in communicating with plant spirits. And in my work in ancient Egyptian applied physics, I found too that there are these beings, they're higher harmonic intelligence, and they are the pattern holders of nature. So the fractal geometric Mandelbrot series growth pattern, inherent in all plant growth, in all natural patterns, it's guided and held by these intelligent beings, these intelligences that are non-physical. And so when you allow the plants to grow, that one of the messages that the Findhorn founders received from the plant kingdom, I think it was like a beech tree or something that directly spoke to them, a specific angel, and they have a lot of these messages from all these different types of beings that they contacted, said that one of the problems that the plant kingdom has with human beings, with the human kingdom or whatever, humans are part of the animal kingdom, but we kind of are our own species in a way. We are our own species, but we're our own kingdom in a way because of how we kind of relate to every other kingdom. But anyway, they told the humans, the Findhorn founders, they said, we are ever trying to reach our full growth potential, and humans don't understand, and so they keep cutting us back and preventing us from growing to the maximum potential we have. And I'm paraphrasing what they said. It's a beautiful quote. I would highly recommend the book To Honor the Earth by Dorothy McLean and Kathleen Thormod Carr. It's just fantastic. It's one of my greatest inspirations, and it contains pages and pages of direct quotes from these angelic Davic beings that the Findhorn community was founded on, and profound messages for the survival of the human species on planet Earth. So anyway, that's just the mystical side. I just wanted to throw that in there because what's a victory garden without, a woo-woo element, right? So anyway, I hope you have a victory garden, and if you don't have one, I hope you start one, and I hope this has been helpful and fun, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions or thoughts or recommendations for further videos. Have a great rest of your day.